Let's bring in our football analyst, Jim Barker. And Coach, I'm going to prep you. I'm going to keep you for 2 segments, if that's cool today, if you have time. And I'm quite interested to know what is on your mind football-wise right now. We've got the drafts coming up in 2 leagues, combines wrapped up, rule changes, UFL starting. Pretty busy time for what you would call the off-season.
For no doubt about it. Obviously, the combine and the draft, the CFL draft, which I love, getting ready for that. Our draft show will be on TSN April 30th, carrying the first couple rounds live. I'm excited about that because there's so many different things that can happen. And as people get to actually look into some of the players and the teams and who should they take, and if they're a team that needs to win right away, or they're going to get fired by Labor Day, or they're going to take a different kind of player. There's so many dynamics in the CFL draft that they don't have in the NFL draft. But the NFL draft sets the table for the CFL draft, and which players that could be in the CFL draft end up either being drafted on, in the NFL, or sign priority free agents contracts, or go to a NFL rookie camp. They bring a lot of guys in to just take a look at, but that all affects the CFL draft. So just this whole time of that is exciting. I think watching what some of the NFL teams are doing in free agency, the Pittsburgh Steelers obviously is the most interesting. I mean, does Russell Wilson sign with them if they make the Justin Fields trade a week before he made his decision? They waited till after they got him, then they went out and got Justin Fields. What will that dynamic be like? I mean, they right now say it's going to be Russell's job, and which I believe it will be. And I think they're in a perfect situation, to be honest with you. It's actually a stroke of genius what they did. So, I mean, there's just so many interesting things going on that, that make watching the whole NFL, CFL, and then you have obviously the UFL kicking off this week. And there's a lot of players there that have been in the CFL. Obviously, there's a lot of players that want to get back to the NFL, and what's the caliber of quarterbacking going to be, and just getting a chance to watch those games the first week, and will be interesting. I'm actually going to be in Las Vegas over the weekend, and they'll have all the games on, so I'll be able to watch. And again, the quarterbacking last year I thought was just bad. It was tough for me. It was tough to watch. So hopefully this year it'll be a little better. I know this year there's more players heading north to Canada that, for whatever reason or another, aren't playing in that league this year. So, it's a really interesting time, Rod, for those of us that are into draft. And then you got the CFL rule changes happening. And one of the best things about not being with a team is I can say what I think about them. I can't say,
isn't it great?
I'm with a team. I can't. It's true. It's the one thing I like about being a media guy, Rod, is I get a chance to say, I think this is a horrible idea, where I couldn't do that if I was with a team, because you got to, go with the flow. So that is the one big bonus to being like you.
Well, and the one thing I like is being able to work with a variety of leagues. It's opening day today. I can wear Blue Jays gear and hockey, football, whatever. I want to do that rather than be locked down to one team. It's working out great. But we have a lot of viewers have written in about the UFL. And I try to push all the football questions to Friday. When you're with us today. They're really excited about the UFL. Yeah, and I think a lot of our viewers love alternative football, as some say it, anything that's not the NFL. Who are some of the names that are in the UFL that people would recognize that you know far better than me? Just what are your thoughts on this league?
Again, I don't know. And that's a big problem with the league, because they changed and they took 2 leagues and merged it into one. And, to be honest with you, I don't know. I won't know till next week who the players are and who the quarterbacks are even. I mean, Tamu will be in there. He was very successful. But, McLeod Bethel-Thompson was a quarterback in New Orleans. He's now in the Canadian League. So, to be honest with you, I don't want to give people wrong information. I've spent 0 time looking at who's on the rosters. I've watched the cuts, because there's players that are cut that, oh, wow, this guy would really be good in the CFL. Because even though I was in the very first XFL, I have one of the Cracker Jack box championship rings from the XFL. In fact, the only one, because we actually finished the season. But I guess maybe Birmingham. No, that was the USFL. So the XFL hasn't finished the season. I don't know. But again,
Yes.
Vince McMahon told us before the game, before the championship, our rings are going to make the NFL Super Bowl rings look small. And they didn't, obviously. But no, so I've been in those alternative leagues, and it was a blast. I mean, the way they did things was different, and I actually really loved it. So I'm anxious to watch this weekend. And if the quarterback play can intrigue me and can make that stuff watchable, I'll be really excited about it, because again, the coaching's going to be decent. Jeff Fisher's in the league again, I believe, and Skip Holtz has won it, in Birmingham, and so there's a lot. John DeFilippo, a good coach. So there's some good coaches in the league, and it's just going to be very interesting to watch. But I can't really, I don't know a lot of the good players in that league right now. You ask me next week, and I will update myself this week. I had no idea you had listeners or watchers who are into that league.
Well, it's fun, and by the way, now I don't feel so bad because I don't know either. I used to be really into it. I used to talk to Jim Pop once a week. I don't know if Jim Pop's involved or not, and I think a little of that has to do with the instability of what they've been doing down there. That's on them. They've lost a lot of us that were following it before. So that Kirk guy has showed up again, and Kirk says, "Hey, Rod, could you please ask Jim Barker, have the Argos hired a defensive coordinator?" And you answered it last week, Kevin Iben and Willie Fields. I don't believe that's changed, right? So we can move on from that. Oh, did we lose him? Okay, Jim answered that last week. Kevin Iben and Willie Fields will be, I guess, co-defensive coordinators with the Toronto Argonauts this week. Yeah, John in Edmonton says, Jim, can the CFL go to streaming like Amazon Prime or somewhere different in the future? That's not Jim's bag as a football guy. I wouldn't ask him that. John Ohm in Winnipeg, we got Jim back. He says, it'll be interesting what the CFL does on the kicking portion of the game. They made the huge change in the NFL this week. So how soon before we expect the CFL to at all, if at all?
Well, I have strong feelings about this. The 4-down game and the 3-down game are two separate things. We play the greatest 3-down football in the world. It was derived more from the kicking game. The American game was taken from our game. So kicking isn't as important. To change our rules, and basically the one that really gets me is eliminating the kickoff after touchdowns and saying that teams can just take the ball at the 40 like we do on field goals. I just think it takes such a huge part of our game. Our field is 65 yards wide. We have only 3 downs. It's just, again, I understand their injury thing, and if they have the data that backs up that guys are having serious injuries, most of them are muscle pulls. They get, from running underneath the kicks. I'd be all for, okay, if you're on the kickoff team, you have to line up at the 35, and when the kicker kicks the ball, then you take off, rather than having the running start. I could do that. This thing they're going to do that the XFL did, where you start running down around the 35-yard line, and you're already down there, and you wait till I don't understand how it works. I just don't find it interesting. It just isn't. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but until they show me that that's an exciting thing to do for our game, look at this, and if they make the change this year, it would really upset me. I look at a team like the Edmonton Elks, and they have to win. There's no question they have to win. They've gone 2 straight years with 4 wins. Chris Jones is going to be on the hot seat if they don't win, and everybody who knows anything about the CFL. So they go out and they get the best kicker in the league. Maybe not the best field goal guy, but I know with the Argos, there's the start point of the other team was normally inside the 25 because Boris kicks it off to the goal line or in. And in the CFL, if you kick it in the end zone and don't bring it out, that's a single point. So you need to bring it out. So now you're starting on the 20 or the 25. So they go out and sign the guy who kicks the ball off deeper than anybody else in the league. They go out and sign last year's special teams player of the year, Javon Leake. So they go out and improve their football team for the Canadian game as it is. Now you go and change the rules right before the season. And those two guys become basically irrelevant if you're not kicking off anymore. Obviously, the punt still happens. So Javon can return punts. But kickoff returns are such a huge, that's Gizmo Williams, his greatest plays all came on kickoff returns. The kickoff returns are great, exciting plays in our league. And I don't want us to forget we're a different game. The way this works is the NFL copies from the CFL. We don't copy from them because their game is different. They take things from us. They take offensive systems. The whole spread offense thing started in the CFL years ago. So again, it kind of infuriates me when I can get fired up about it now, where if I was with a team, I could bitch to you on the, off the air, but you can't really say what you feel in front of the world. Now I can, because I'm a media guy.
Yeah. Finally, you said it. Write it down. March 28th, Jim Barker's a media guy. But you can be a football guy, too. That's the beautiful thing, right? It's funny you say that, because just this morning they were talking on the radio here about the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel's CFL offense with Miami. With the speed and the motion and all the rest. So, yeah, for sure. The NFL, Darren in Utah says the NFL went to the XFL kickoff and the UFL are not using it. The XFL did finish a season last year. Arlington won the league. Birmingham won the USFL. Don in Ottawa says, preach it, Jim. They're listening. John in Winnipeg says CFL, the best brand of football. Jim knows. Bravo. Wayne in Victoria, BC says, I absolutely agree with Jim Barker. The CFL game is great the way that it is. I saw on Twitter in the break, Mr. Barker, that Jim Irsay in Indy said 40 years ago today, football changed forever in Indianapolis. And I had to look it up. It was a long time ago.
Wow. The Cleveland Browns.
I was 11. The Browns moved. The Colts moved, did they not, from Baltimore to Indy? He said it was the first day for Colts football in Indianapolis. That's what it was, man. That whole Art Modell situation in the 80s, crazy. Crazy stuff. Crazy. The ownership and stuff. Do you love that old history? You must.
I do. Johnny Unitas, I mean, I can see him in his high top shoes, and, Tom Maddie, the old Baltimore Colts, and it was like nothing was ever going to be the same when they moved to Indianapolis. And at the same time, I think right around then, Cleveland was going through their issue. It was interesting. Glad that the Ravens went to Baltimore, because I think Baltimore is a great market. And like I say, it was one of those. That's right. It was Baltimore. The Baltimore Colts moved to Indianapolis. Yeah. 40 years, huh? It seems like 10
40 years ago today.
That's amazing.
I know.
That's
the scary part. That's the scary thing. And I was talking to actually
it was like a midnight move, wasn't it? They packed them up and they did it at midnight. Yeah, I remember that. Crazy.
You got to go back and read. You got to read the book on the Baltimore Stallions history, and they said that it was midnight. Like Art Modell just loaded up the trucks and took off in the middle of the night. Didn't tell anybody. And to be honest, that's what I'm afraid Gary Bettman's going to do with the Winnipeg Jets, and just leave everybody hanging. But that's a topic for another time. I got to ask you this: you were just in Winnipeg at the CFL Combine. I saw the coverage of the NFL mock drafts have changed and shifted because of performances at the NFL Combine. Do you expect some guys will move up or down based on what happened at Winnipeg last weekend?
Well, here's an interesting thing, and this is just me. I didn't hear this from anybody, but Joel DeBlanco was arguably the most impressive player at the Combine. And he was with the Seattle Seahawks last year in training camp. He played He actually went to the XFL, got released after a week, went to the USFL, and played it for Philadelphia in the USFL. So he's got a full year. He comes into the combine, and again, I was expecting him to run a 4.75, to do something along those lines. I actually told him, I think you are a Mike linebacker, period. I think, Will, it puts you in a space that you're not real comfortable in, out there with a 65-yard wide field. And I told him that in an interview I had with him. And he said, that's interesting. Then he goes out and he ripped off a 4.59 at 233 pounds. Then the next day, he doesn't practice. He has said he has a groin pull. Now, is that because the agent told him, hey, this is going to get us play back in the NFL, where the CFL Combine is going to actually, potentially, we're going to lose a really quality player due to him doing so well at our Combine? And I know in the past, they always look at our numbers. That one is the one that's the most glaring, is, wow, maybe we need to look at this guy. That would be a shame, because he could be the first guy taken overall. I don't believe he would last past pick 3. But if he he could go sign as a free agent right now. Now that changes the whole draft. And I hope that doesn't happen. But it really adds an interesting thing to it. Now, he doesn't have to wait for the NFL draft, so he could sign now. If he doesn't sign by the time of the NFL draft, I would guess that he's probably not going to. But again, it was one of the interesting things I was talking about with some people afterwards, and they hadn't thought of the thing of him possibly signing right now. But I think it's very possible, because 4.59, 233 pounds, 26 years old, that's a good combination.
That's prime. Yeah. Carlos in Indianapolis writes in. He says, the RP show allows people's real selves to express themselves. It's not corporate approved talking points or personalities screaming hot takes at each other. Nope. That will never be us. Thank you for noticing, Carlos. John in Kansas City writes in, and he says, I love Jim's comments on how the other leagues copy the CFL rules. Spot on. You can be a fan of all leagues and rules, but the CFL is unique in a good way. Here's a mind reversal. You can be a football snob by liking all the leagues. It means you're more cultured and more open-minded to like all the leagues, rather than just saying, I watch NFL only, because that's stupid, or college only. By the way, before we move on to something else, I had people sending me photos from Combine that had pictures taken with you. So that was kind of cool to open it up to the fans. And they said they told you they enjoy you on this show. So that's cool.
Yep. You're big in Winnipeg. I don't know what it is, Rob.
I know, right?
People came up and
me either.
They told me how much they love watching me every Friday on Rod's show. And no, there was a great fan turnout in Winnipeg. The venue that they had it in was the best I've seen in all the years I've been in the CFL. And it was just so conducive to the players being able to function at a high level and fans being able to really engage both with the players, but being able to have good views of watching different drills and things like that. So it was really a great week. I have to give the CFL kudos for putting it together, and everything ran just beautifully.
They do a really good job. And by the way, if you want to know why this show's popular in Winnipeg or me, it's because we're the same type of people. We're real. We've been through a lot, and we just want good sports talk. And we respect each other. That's how I feel about Winnipeggers, and that's what they tell me they feel about me, and that feels real good. Just one more on combines. With the guys opting out and so forth, they're always going to be around, right? I mean, they've changed, but there's always a benefit to having them. They're not going to go the way of the dodo, are they, combines?
No, I think the combines, in the NFL, it's kind of become like the draft. I think they blow it up too much. I think that with all the televising and all the knowing every little thing that goes on, what a guy got on this, scored on this test or what, I think it's a little bit overblown, but it creates interest. It creates a buzz and talking and getting excited, because the draft in the NFL has become a huge thing. People who follow the CFL, the draft is a great thing. trying to figure out what team. To me, drafting in the CFL, because of the NFL dynamics, because of the whole concept of, do we get a guy who's going to play now or who may be really good but not for 2 years from now, based on a coach, how much time he has left. I mean, there are so many things when you try to analyze and mock a CFL draft that are just fascinating. And I love doing the draft show. We did it last year, and it was one of the funnest things I've ever done in terms of trying to figure out who's going to take who and that type of thing. And because I try to break down every single team. What do they need if they need to win right now? And who is going to be there that they know for sure? And Chris Jones has the first pick in the draft. Does he go and sign the guy before the draft happens, which is what we used to do in the old days? They don't do that as much anymore because they want to keep it available for trade. And I mean, we had a great story where Dimitri Zumpas was sitting in Danny Machoch's office, and we pulled off a draft day trade, and he was in Edmonton with Danny, and Danny and I worked a trade to where we were getting the pick. So now Dimitri drove from Edmonton to Calgary for a press conference with us because we drafted him because we had traded to get the pick. So, you have things like that happen in the CFL that don't happen anywhere else, that are just fascinating and fun. So this is a great time of the year. I really love this time of the year because of all the things like that.
Yeah, and what a great player he ended up being for Calgary and just for the CFL, Zumpas, by the way.
Yeah.
Can't wait till next week. I'll say Happy Easter. Say hey to Holly for me. Safe travels, Jim, and thanks for this.
Thanks, Rod. Have a great Easter.